Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Get it on, because what just happened? Grab your emotional lip gloss. This is serious. Breaking news. Hello and welcome back to my channel. I was just about ready to get unwind. I was just about ready to unwind for the night. I just posted the episode for today, and then I was like, let me just go and check out the court dockets before I indulge in a little gummy and glass of wine. And my, oh my. Snake Lively, come to the front, please. Liar, liar, pants on fire. In a not so surprising turn of events, and I thought this was going to happen a long time ago, in her amended complaint, Blake Lively is now pulling and withdrawing her 10th cause of action for intentional infliction of emotional distress and her 11th cause of action for negligent infliction of emotional distress. Yeah, because they've asked for medical records to prove this supposed stress and emotional stress. And instead of providing medical records, which don't exist, I feel like, allegedly, she's withdrawing those claims. And now I wish I could find the video that I made. If you've been following my channel, watched all my videos, before she filed her amended complaint, I said I think that she is going to remove these claims. I think that she is going to remove the SH claims or anything that has to do with that she needs to prove that this happened and it caused her emotional distress, because it never happened. And now here we are on June 2nd, and yeah, these letters are very interesting that were submitted by the Wayfarer parties, and we are going to get into it. But before we get into those letters, I just want to say this. This is what real victims and survivors have been talking about when it comes to Blake Lively. Okay, and why do I say that? It's pretty simple. Because if you are sexually harassed, assaulted, violated, it changes you. It affects you. And it forever changes you. Okay, and now I've gone through a toxic workplace environment. I have filed a lawsuit where it involved harassment, ongoing harassment, which at the end included sexual harassment. I had to see my doctor every week for months after that. I had to go to therapy for months after. And then when we finally went to arbitration, when we finally got there, when we finally got to a place where we each had lawyers, we had to sit down, mediation, then arbitration, they were asking long before that for medical records. Even my lawyers were like, well, you're going to have to turn over your medical records. Here you go. Here you go. Along with every single text message and every single email I ever sent to the company, from the company, about the company. Here you go. My doctor fully filed all these papers. They asked them all to file all of these papers and answer all of these questions about my medical history and then about my diagnostics and everything. During this time, he spent so much time, filling out all of these papers and writing an affidavit. And my therapist, able and willing, was going to do the exact same thing, because it was happened to me, and it changed me, and it hurt me, and it affected me, and it took me months and months and months and months of therapy and ongoing therapy to even be able to think about going back into the workforce again, trusting people again. When this happens to you, it affects you. And what did Blake Lively do? She went straight from that set to clawing her way into the editing room, not so emotionally distressed that she had to back away from the project, never to be there again, except for her contractual obligations to do the PR and to go to the press and to do all of that. No, she forced her way into the editing room, took over the movie. How emotionally distressed of being on that set that now you're able to sit down and edit your violation, edit your abuse over and over and over again. And then went from there to go filming another movie straight away, where she has some juicy scenes. Let's just put it that way. But let's just go into these letters filed moments ago in the court. Let's read them. It is shocking, but not shocking. Do you know what I mean? Let me know what you think. Let's go over them. Just so you can see kind of what happened is there was a letter motion to seal exhibits A and B that was addressed to the judge. And I'm pretty sure that is Blake Lively's response to the medical questions and everything like that. And then following that, there was a letter motion to compel Blake Lively to produce medical records. I'm not able to see that at the moment, but then right under I am, and it is the motion to compel. Now, exhibits A and B are currently under seal, but the exhibit C isn't, and that's the email exchange between Blake Lively's team and Justin Baldoni's team, and we are going to get into all of it right now. This is just the first one to have the document sealed. It's pretty easy breezy. On behalf of Wayfarer Studios, LLC, Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, Steve Soritz, It Ends With Us, Movie, LLC, Melissa Nathan, the agency group PR, and Jennifer Abel, collectively the Wayfarer parties. We write pursuant to Rule 4B of Attachment A to your Honor's individual rules to respectfully request that the court preliminarily seal exhibits A and B to the Wayfarer parties' motion to compel. Filed contemporaneously, I'm still working on that word, all right. Herewith, exhibits A and B are Blake Lively's responses and objections and her amended version thereof to the Wayfarer party's second set of requests for production, which Ms. Lively designated as confidential. In accordance with Rule 4.B of Attachment A, the Wayfarer parties respectfully request that the court not rule on this letter motion to seal for 1 week, so that the parties can meet and confer, and Ms. Lively may file a motion for continued sealing if she so chooses. Oh, you already know she's going to be sealing that. You already know she's going to file to have everything sealed. It's Blake Lively. She doesn't want anything out there. But now this is the very interesting letter filed by the Wayfarer parties June 2nd to the judge. As counsel for Wayfarer Studios, LLC, Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, Steve Soritz, It Ends With Us, Movie, LLC, Melissa Nathan, the agency group PR, LLC, Jennifer Abel, collectively, the Wayfarer parties. We write in accordance with Rules 1.c and 4.c of your Honor's individual practices to request an order compelling Blake Lively to identify her medical and mental health care providers, to produce her mental health records, and to deliver to the Wayfarer parties the necessary, duly executed HIPAA authorizations permitting them to obtain Ms. Lively's medical and mental health care records from her providers, the motion, which are responsive to certain requests for production, the medical RFPs. The health-related information is highly relevant to Ms. Lively's 10th cause of action for intentional infliction of emotional distress and her 11th cause of action for negligent infliction of emotional distress, collectively the IED claims. Instead of complying with the medical RFPs, Ms. Lively's counsel recently advised us in writing that Ms. Lively is withdrawing her IED claims. However, Ms. Lively has refused the Wayfarer party's reasonable request that the withdrawal of such claims be with prejudice. Of course. Now, she doesn't want it with prejudice because that means that she can't refile later. But yeah, hello, sweetheart. Of course they want it with prejudice. So what then, in a year or in 6 more months, you can just come back and try to redo this whole thing? Give me a break. She is only willing to withdraw her claims without prejudice. In other words, Ms. Lively wants to simultaneously A, refuse to disclose the information and documents needed to disprove that she suffered any emotional distress and or that the Wayfarer parties were the cause, and B, maintain the right to refile her IED claims at an unknown time in this or some other court after the discovery window has closed. Ms. Lively cannot have it both ways. If Ms. Lively wants to withdraw her frivolous IED claims, the Wayfarer parties are entitled to a dismissal with prejudice to ensure that they will not be refiled. If Ms. Lively is unwilling to stipulate to the dismissal of her IED claims with prejudice, then the Wayfarer parties will continue to defend against them, and she must produce her medical information and documents as set forth herein. In her amended complaint, Ms. Lively claims that the Wayfarer parties alleged misconduct, severely impacting her physical, psychological, and emotional well-being. Moreover, Ms. Lively repeatedly alleges that she has suffered and continues to suffer substantial damages, including, but not limited to, severe emotional distress and pain, humiliation, embarrassment, belittlement, frustration, and mental anguish. In addition to her claims for sexual harassment and retaliation, Ms. Lively's amended complaint asserts claims for intentional infliction of emotional distress and for negligent infliction of emotional distress. Blake Lively's refusal to disclose her medical and mental health information and documents. Given the IED claims, the Wayfarer parties served Ms. Lively with the medical RFPs, which seek standard healthcare-related information from Ms. Lively that is routinely exchanged in cases involving claims for physical and emotional injuries. Specifically, the medical RFPs seek 1. The names and addresses of the medical and mental health care providers that treated and or examined Ms. Lively for her alleged emotional distress. 2. All reports and or treatment notes of those physicians and health and mental care providers who have treated and or examined Ms. Lively for her alleged emotional distress. And 3, complete and duly executed HIPAA forms authorizing her medical and mental health care providers to release her records to the Wayfarer parties for purposes of this litigation. However, Ms. Lively objected and refused to disclose the medical information and documents which are highly relevant to her IED claims. By alleging that she suffered physical and emotional injuries, Ms. Lively has placed her physical and mental condition at issue and in turn must produce relevant information and documents. Then they cite a case that directing plaintiff to provide HIPAA authorizations for her medical and psychiatric records where she asserted claims for intentional and negligent infliction of emotional distress. Then they cite another case granting motion to compel plaintiff to identify each of his mental health care providers and to supply defendants with fully executed HIPAA compliant forms. I mean, it's standard. It's standard if you are filing for emotional distress and all of this stuff that you do have to provide that, you were seeing a healthcare professional, what the diagnosis is, it's standard if it happened. In other words, Ms. Lively has waived any doctor-patient privilege. Plaintiffs waived psychotherapist patient privilege by asserting intentional infliction of emotional distress and negligent infliction of emotional claims and alleging they suffered psychological injuries. In any lawsuit where the plaintiff is alleging physical and emotional injuries, it is standard it is standard procedure for the judge to direct the plaintiff to sign an HIPAA compliant authorization for the release of his complete medical, pharmacy, psychiatric, or psychological treatment or counseling records. On May 28th, 2025, we met and conferred via telephone with Ms. Lively's counsel about her objections to the medical RFPs, cited some of the legal authorities supporting our position, and requested that counsel reconsider its objection to disclosure. Blake Lively's refusal to stipulate to partial dismissal with prejudice. Thereafter, Ms. Lively's counsel notified us that given her obligation to provide the Wayfarer parties with her medical information and records in support of her IED claims, Ms. Lively is electing to withdraw her IED claims. Right here. Ms. Lively is electing to withdraw her IED claims. In other words, rather than substantiating her IED claims, Ms. Lively is abandoning them. Pursuant to Rule 4.1, we requested that Ms. Lively's counsel and counsel for all other parties sign a stipulation of partial dismissal that dismissed those claims, but no others, with prejudice. Ms. Lively's counsel has refused to sign the stipulation and file it with the court. Instead, Miss Lively's counsel edited the proposed stipulation to weaken it so that the dismissal of her IED claims would be without prejudice. How interesting that they edited that. Do you remember that when she had the list of demands, protections to go back to work, even though none of the stuff that she claimed even happened in phase 1 yet? Like, they didn't even shoot any of that stuff. It was so awkward that the Wayfarer parties tried to edit it and make, changes to it so that it didn't sound the way Blake Lively has used it now in her CRD complaint and in the fabricated New York Times article. And they weren't allowed to make any changes. It had to be agreed upon word for word for word. But now she's able to go and just edit this to have it without prejudice. A true copy of an email from Ms. Lively's counsel, which encloses her red lines to the Wayfarer party's proposed stipulation of partial dismissal, is attached as Exhibit C. Although we are amenable to Ms. Lively's offer to withdraw her meritless IED claims, the Wayfarer parties cannot agree to any withdrawal that enables Ms. Lively to refile them. After spending much of Friday and even Saturday attempting to further meet and confer via email and providing supporting authority only to receive an insufficient revised stipulation in return, we have made a good faith determination that continued efforts will not be fruitful and respectfully seek the intervention of this court. If Ms. Lively wants to pursue her IED claims against the Wayfarer parties, she must do so here and now and provide them with the requisite medical information and documents. We respectfully request that the court grant the motion and direct Ms. Lively to 1. Disclose the names and addresses of the medical and mental health care professionals that treated and or examined her for alleged emotional distress. 2. Produce all reports and or treatment notes of those physicians and health and medical care providers who have treated and or examined her for alleged emotional distress. 3. Delivery duly executed HIPAA forms and her medical and psychiatric records for the last 4 years. See Taylor 2020. Granting motion to compel identification of medical providers that rendered treatment to plaintiffs in last 10 years and to provide HIPAA releases of the disclosure of her medical and psychological treatment records. And in the footnotes, it says, our continued efforts to meet and confer were prompted in part by Ms. Lively's initial improper designation of her intent to withdraw her claims as confidential, which pursuant to the protective order requires a prompt meet and confer to address just disagreements. This designation appeared intended to obstruct our legitimate right to seek relief from the court and in any event was withdrawn in a subsequent communication not marked as confidential and which is attached to this motion. And then you do have the email thread that they had. This is from Blake Lively's lawyers first. This is counsel. We are in receipt of your latest correspondence from January. Counsel, we are in receipt of your latest correspondence from Saturday at 11:29 p.m. EST and Sunday at 12:02. We are amenable to Ms. Lively filing a stipulation with respect to causes of action 10 and 11 and provided edits to your proposal draft stipulation in the attached. We expect this resolves your concerns. If you would like to discuss, we are available tomorrow afternoon. Counsel for the parties have already scheduled a meet and confer at 4:30 p.m. EST, and we can do so during the teleconference. And then this was what they were referring to when she said counsel. So then they sent it at 12:02. Counsel, please see the attached correspondence. And then you do have the letter here. Stipulation of partial dismissal without. So they added without prejudice. Do you see it here? Just here. So they had stipulation of partial dismissal with prejudice, and they added in blue without. So in blue is what they added. So this is what it says. It is hereby stipulated and agreed by and between the undersigned attorneys for the parties to the above captioned action that pursuant to Federal R Civil P 15 and 4 and this court's inherent authority, plaintiff Blake Lively hereby voluntarily withdraws and dismisses the 10th cause of action, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and the 11th cause of action, negligent infliction of emotional distress, asserted in her amended complaint, without prejudice. With each party to bear their own costs and fees associated with the foregoing dismissed claims, and without the withdrawal or dismissal of any other claims, counterclaim, or third-party claim asserted therein. It is further stipulated and agreed that this stipulation may be executed in counterparts and electronic or blah, 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 and then they can sign electronically. Now, they had it dated May 30th. They deleted that. Blake Lively's people added June 2nd. Also, look what they added. Associated with the foregoing dismissal claim. So she's still thinking that she's going to get dismissed. They also added without prejudice. And then they added, and this court's inherent authority. Okay. I knew this wasn't about sexual harassment, emotional distress, infliction, nothing. This was about her really thinking that there was a smear campaign coordinated by Justin Baldoni. It was not by Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, Wayfarer, Melissa Nathan, or Jennifer Abel. You have all content creators and anyone that literally watched your horrible, distasteful, tone-deaf PR tour. The way everyone noticed that Justin Baldoni wasn't there at the movie premiere. The only person that you have to blame is Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. That's who you guys should be blaming. Y'all should be sitting face to face doing some sort of meditation with each other, looking at each other in the eyes, and working it out among yourselves on how you failed and yeah, not doing all this. This is too much. This is not going to look good. I can't believe that she's pulling this now. It's going to be an interesting week, but there you have it. Blake Lively has voluntarily withdrawn her 10th cause of action, which is intentional infliction of emotional distress, and the 11th cause of action, which is negligent infliction of emotional distress. So, wow.